So it's common that tenants will leave something behind when they depart a property. That might range from a bit of rubbish to one or two items of clothing to literally the entire house. Um, Landlords have obligations in respect of abandoned property. They're very old obligations, and they're contained in something called the Torts Interference with Goods Act, which covers lots of other situations where stuff is accidentally abandoned. And in fact, it also covers situations where, for example, you get a delivery to your house that you didn't ask for. But the essential point is that the landlord is what's called an involuntary bailee of goods, without getting into the detail of the law. And they have to give reasonable notice of their intentions to do something with the property, and then they can do what they want with it within practice. So if a tenant's abandoned the property, the first thing you should do is get a quick inventory of what's there. That doesn't necessarily mean an exhaustive listing. My preferred method these days actually is to just lay it all out and video it or take pictures of it. Because if you do start throwing stuff away, the big danger is the tenant comes back later and claims you've thrown away something valuable. And in that case, all the suitcases will be very expensive Gucci suitcases, and they will all be stuffed with cash and or jewellery. So it's very important to have a rough piece of evidence of what there actually was. You have to store the property securely. It doesn't have to be left in the premises. You can put it somewhere else. But what you can't do is stick it in your damp, mouldy basement and watch it all get destroyed. So you have to store it in a reasonably secure manner. The cost of that can, in theory, be recovered from the tenant, but it can be sometimes hard to actually do that in practice. You should then notify the tenant that you've got the items, an email, a text message, any of these things, and say if you don't hear from them within a reasonable period, they will be destroyed. Now, ideally, a really good tenancy agreement should cover this issue for you, because it will normally say that anything that's abandoned the property and not collected within a set period of time, usually around 14 or 28 days, will be destroyed. If you've given that notification and you've kept the stuff for a reasonable period of time and you've not heard from anybody, then at the end of it you can either sell the stuff if you can find anyone to buy it, often quite difficult, or you can simply bin it. If you keep it and use it, or you sell it for money, you must credit the tenant with the money. Now obviously you can offset that against storage costs, but if you got a lot of money from selling these things and the tenant reappeared within a period of time, up to 6 years, you would have to give them the money back. So you should be quite cautious before you think you've had some massive windfall in selling off all the jewellery you found, for example. And if it was a high value item, I would strongly advise keeping it. Those things taken into account, that's most of the issues dealt with. The only other thing that is worth bearing in mind is if you take control of the property that is not the occupier's and sell it, then you're liable for double its value. And the classic problem there is items on hire purchase. So high value electrical goods like televisions and so on, I would take a very close look at. If they've come from a hire purchase arrangement, they will almost always have some sort of plastic plate bonded to them telling you who they're hired from. And I would contact that hire purchase company and ask them to take away their goods. If there's a lot of rubbish, and if things are obviously rubbish, then they could be treated as rubbish. But you should also be a little bit careful about what you choose to treat as rubbish. If something's clearly perishable and disintegrating or hazardous, or has absolutely no obvious value, it can be disposed of. But be careful. I remember dealing with a case where a tenant was unlawfully evicted and the landlord treated as rubbish all of the photographs of his dead fiancée, which were irreplaceable, and the landlord had thrown them all away. They were irrecoverable and ended up paying a lot of money in damages. So what's your rubbish may in fact be poorly stored, but personally valuable or irreplaceable items. So just as with storage costs, the cost of disposing of rubbish is theoretically recoverable from the tenant as well, but in practice, unless you're taking out a deposit, it's really difficult to get this money in the end.